You saw her drop the glass. Not by accident, not truly. It slipped as her eyes held yours too long, the sound echoing like a cracked verdict in the middle of silence. She knelt to clean it, slow, fragile, trembling. Yet you caught it, the smirk, before she looked down. She never says no, she only forgets, only misunderstands, only needs one more explanation. And in your effort to clarify, you step closer to her script until your decisions feel like guilt, your strength feels like cruelty, and your silence becomes the proof she demanded. You think you're patient, but you are being narrated. Her power is not in the storm, it's in the helpless flutter of her hands, in the delay, in the slight, the missed call, the innocent sigh. The mask of confusion is not a flaw, it is a tactic. Confusion that makes you reach for order. Her disorder becomes your leash. If this whisper already knows you, let it echo. Like the video, leave your shadow in the comments, subscribe, and stay near the silence. The next time she forgets what you said, remember what this silence just told you. She shatters understanding not to lose it, but to force you to hold it tighter. In her name, you thought it was clumsiness, a slip of the tongue, a misheard sentence, a forgotten plan. But it keeps happening, doesn't it? Not once, not twice. It's the way she furrows her brow when you speak, as if your words arrive dressed in riddles. It's the way she asks you to repeat what you just said, even though she was nodding just moments before. You tell yourself she's distracted, kind, perhaps too overwhelmed to focus. But you ignore the sharpness of her memory when it suits her. How she recalls your smallest insult from 3 months ago, but forgets your clear instructions from this morning. She forgets strategically, she fails selectively, and she watches how far you bend to fill in the cracks. She plays dumb but never blind. She misses your point but never your emotion. You begin repeating yourself more. You slow your voice, choosing simpler words, clearer examples. You explain things like a teacher, not a man. And that's when the script shifts, because now her confusion isn't weakness, it's your dominance. You become the tyrant she silently accused you of being. You raise your voice not in anger, but in exhaustion. Yet to her, it sounds like fury. She blinks, wounded, and you apologize not for what you did, but for what she pretended to misunderstand. This is not a woman who lost her way. This is a woman who lets you build the map so she can decide where the trail disappears. It always starts with softness, the tone that says I didn't mean to, the silence that says I didn't know. And soon, you're trapped in a palace of interpretations where her words are made of smoke and yours are carved in stone. She forgets birthdays, misquotes your promises, rearranges the past until you wonder if you misremembered. But her tears always accurate, her needs always urgent. Her confusion protects her from consequence while demanding you carry the cost of every delay. And here is the cruelty of it all. You love her more for being lost. You chase her mind like a riddle, a beautiful enigma you want to protect. You think you're solving her, rescuing her, teaching her. But Machiavelli saw it before you ever touched her skin. Confusion is the perfect disguise for control. A ruler in rags commands more hearts than a king in gold. The moment you pity her, she becomes powerful. And the more powerful she becomes, the more confused she seems. She will never ask you for power. She will ask you to explain. And each explanation is a brick in a prison where only your voice echoes. She won't fight you for dominance. She'll simply say she doesn't understand. And in that moment, your instinct is not to retreat. It's to give more. You give your reasons, your thoughts, your steps. And she listens with that same tilted head, that same half-innocent stare. But when she answers, It's always in the form of another question. She buys time with doubt. She buys space with fragility. She buys your will with your need to be clear. And that's the trick. She knows clarity is a masculine burden. She knows men define, decide, direct. But she also knows the one who resists definition gains power over the one who tries to define her. She becomes the mirror you keep trying to fix, and in doing so, she becomes the one who decides what you see. You don't just explain things to her, you explain yourself to her, and she listens, silent, while you confess every layer of your logic, all while she wears a look of gentle confusion. Not disagreement, not opposition, just a lack of clarity. But you never realize she is not asking you to make sense. She's asking you to prove yourself. The more she acts like she doesn't get it, the more desperate you are to show her you're right. And in that desperation, you lose command. You speak too much. You reveal too much. You lose the upper hand by holding her hand through every sentence. She will never tell you you're wrong. She will ask you to explain it again. And by the fourth time, you no longer feel like a man who knows. You feel like a man on trial. You feel accused but gently. You feel doubted but sweetly. She breaks the glass of understanding and watches how frantically you pick up the shards. The most dangerous kind of manipulation never attacks. It forgets. It falters. It needs your help, and your help becomes her crown. You become the architect of her excuse. You offer her the very tools she'll use to delay, deny, or redirect. And the more often she confuses your clarity, the more you doubt its worth. Your convictions feel like burdens. Your instructions feel harsh. Your boundaries feel cruel, because she just didn't know. And if she didn't know, how can she be blamed? And if she can't be blamed, shouldn't you be more gentle? And if you must be more gentle, then who, exactly, is in control? You tell yourself it's love, but it's labor. You're not her partner, you're her interpreter. And still, she plays it so beautifully. She does not demand. She simply can't remember. She simply can't follow. She simply didn't mean it that way. And you, burning with the need to be fair, carry her confusion like a knight with a broken shield. But Machiavelli smiles in the corner of the room. He sees the goblet fall. He sees your face twist in effort. He knows what's next. She kneels to pick up the pieces, looking up at you with wide eyes and trembling hands. You kneel beside her not to dominate, but to serve, and in that moment, she holds you, not physically, not with chains, but with her loss of understanding. And this is the final sting. She never lost it. She let go because she knew you would dive after it, like the glass she dropped, like the plan she forgot, like the truth she blurred. Her confusion isn't an accident, it's bait. She doesn't want to understand. She wants you to need her to understand, because a man explaining himself is a man already beneath her spell. And by the time you realize what game you're in, you've already played your role. You are no longer speaking, you are performing, and she's no longer confused. She's directing. The glass is broken, and she hands you a broom with a smile. You sweep the floor like a loyal man. But Machiavelli whispers she dropped it on purpose. A woman's confusion is often a stage, and you, the man, are her eager audience, paying in logic while she earns applause in doubt. She sighs, just loud enough. The curtain rises, not with a shout or accusation, no. Her power is subtler than that. It begins with that sigh, the slouch of the shoulders, the half-open mouth that seems like it might speak but never does. You ask what's wrong. She says, nothing. Never mind. The bait dangles, and you bite. Again. Because that never mind is never final. It's a spell, a cue, a moment rehearsed in the mirror. You think you're being empathetic. She knows you're being recruited, not to love her, to perform for her, to prove once more that her silence is the loudest voice in the room. She becomes a damsel, but not the kind that screams. She doesn't demand rescue, she withholds it. The performance isn't about her being helpless. It's about how you respond to her helplessness. That is where the game begins, not when she cries, but when you need to stop her from crying. And when you do, she wins. Every time. Not because she controls you with force, but because she scripts the scene, then stands back and lets you act it out. You didn't enter a conversation, you entered a stage. The script is already written. She has played this scene before, not always with you, but often with men who once thought they were strong. The trick is always the same helplessness as control. The hesitation, the trembling lip, the pause before answering a direct question. All of it choreographed with the precision of a political campaign. Not a single note is off-key. You try to reason, she looks away. You try to hold your ground, she looks hurt. And suddenly, your logic feels violent. Your clarity feels cold. You're no longer defending a boundary. You're hurting someone who did nothing wrong. It doesn't matter what you said, it matters how it made her feel. And the moment her feelings become the standard, you've already lost. Because feelings are fluid, and the woman who claims confusion also controls the current. You say she misunderstood. She says you confused her. You try to bring it back to the facts, but she brings it back to her face, the one now tear-streaked, a mirror of disappointment you cannot bear to see. So you apologize not for a sin, but for her emotion. And now, she has you. This theater has no stage lights, no applause, no exit. It is lit by the soft glow of morality and ambiguity where nothing is clear and everything must be felt. You are not allowed to leave until she has forgiven you. But first, you must prove you care enough to try. And so you rehearse your lines. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to help. I didn't know you felt that way. But her silence remains. Her confusion deepens. She says, I don't know what to say. And yet, somehow, she says everything. In that moment, she becomes the priestess of the fog, drawing power not from words, but from emotional weather. She doesn't argue with you. She doesn't need to. You argue with yourself in her name. You replay the past 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months. You try to locate the crime, the exact sentence that wounded her, the word that made her so quiet, so small. But she doesn't help you find it. She just watches, sweetly, with hurt in her eyes. And you, the man, become the clown, desperate to fix what she won't name. This is how the theater traps you. She doesn't say you were wrong. She says, I just didn't expect that from you. And now, your guilt is not about your words, it's about your character. You're not being corrected, you're being mourned. She acts like a victim of a man she can no longer recognize, and you, unable to bear being the villain, offer her more of your clarity, more of your kindness, more of your will. You bend to prove you're still good. You edit yourself, you tiptoe, you whisper your truths and scream your apologies. But here's the trick. Her power lies not in being powerless, but in convincing you she is. When she claims she doesn't know what to do, you step forward. When she says she's confused, you clarify. When she says she doesn't feel safe, you compromise. And when you compromise again and again, she learns how little it takes to get you to move. Her emotions are no longer spontaneous. They are instruments. She strums a single note of sadness, and you rewrite your whole melody. You adapt to her cues. You shape your world around the space she leaves empty. And all the while, she watches, not cruelly, not even consciously, perhaps, but instinctively. She watches how much you'll give up for her peace. And once she knows your threshold, she owns it. You can no longer assert yourself without fearing that you've made her cry again. Your strength becomes the very thing she reinterprets as harm, not in accusation, but in sighs, in tears, in trembling, in silence. You are no longer allowed to be firm, because her weakness makes it look like abuse. And when you resist the script, when you try to call it out, she becomes confused again. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't mean anything by it. Why are you being so serious? The play resets. The scene begins again. Curtain, lights, performance. And you sit in the audience, clapping for a tragedy you didn't write. Because here is the paradox. She appears most innocent when she is most in control. The woman who doesn't know what she wants will still make you pay for not giving it to her. The woman who says she doesn't understand will still punish you for the consequences of her understanding. And if you press too hard, if you dare to accuse her of manipulation, you confirm her greatest weapon, the role of victim. You're overthinking, you're being paranoid, you're reading into everything, and now, you're the madman. She's confused and innocent, and you are suddenly the one with something to explain. You tried to escape the play, you tried to lift the curtain, but she wrote that scene too, the moment you accuse her of control. You look controlling. The moment you question her confusion, you look cruel. And still, she smiles with soft eyes. The show continues. Machiavelli never feared the sword. He feared the soft voice behind the curtain, the one who doesn't need to command because she already wrote your next line, the one who claims nothing while holding everything, the one who never asks, only reacts, because reaction is the greatest power of all. It's passive, it's moral, it's invisible, but it moves men like puppets. And you were just trying to be fair. But fairness dies in a world where only one person gets to be confused. And she's confused again now, at your tone, at your silence, at your change in energy. She looks at you like you've become someone else, like you've disappointed her again. And you feel it, that same pull to explain, to soften, to repair. The curtain never falls, because she never ends the scene. She just keeps sighing, and you keep performing. She does not want clarity, she wants your clarity in her hands, polished and delayed, until truth itself begs her to speak. It begins with a pause, not hesitation, calculation wrapped in silk, a moment too still to be accidental. She says nothing at first, just listens, nods. The way someone nods when they are not learning, but gathering. The way a monarch listens to a soldier explaining a map, not because she doesn't understand the terrain, but because she wants to know how you do. She listens like a well, deep, reflective, echoing your own voice back to you slightly distorted, just enough to make you ask, did I say that right? And that's the pivot, not of power, but of perspective. You start explaining again, and she lets you. You call it transparency, she calls it time. You mistake her silence for softness, but softness can be velvet and velvet can bind. The woman who delays is not behind. She is circling, waiting for you to say too much, to repeat yourself, to doubt your own conclusion in the name of kindness. And when you offer your clarity, piece by piece, she polishes it. Not to admire, but to hold. And hold she does. She remembers what you say, not to understand, but to own. Later, she will return your words to you, rearranged like a dagger wrapped in a love letter. I'm just using your logic, she says, and suddenly you are defeated by your own definitions. You once believed knowledge was power, but she does not need knowledge. She needs your knowledge. She needs your logic laid out like bones on the table. Once she has it, she does not challenge it. She slows it, softens it, mocks it in implication, never in accusation. I know what you said, but I don't think you meant it that way. Or worse, you always say that. But look at how you act. And now, your own words have turned against you. You feel the shift, the quiet inversion. You still speak, you still define, you still draw lines. But now, they are lines she repositions with suggestion. She doesn't erase what you said. She stains it. She wraps it in emotion. And once emotion enters the room, reason packs its bags. She doesn't want clarity. She wants your clarity under glass. Like a specimen she can rotate, inspect, reframe. She will never fight your truth head on. She will nod, smile, then say, "But isn't it more complicated than that?" And now you're explaining again. You do not see the trap because you believe the trap must be loud, but her silence is louder than your logic. Every time you defend yourself, you affirm that she holds the terms. And she does because she pretended not to want them. That is the velvet reversal. She pretends not to understand until you hand her everything. And once you do, she does not reject it. She simply asks, "Why do you care so much about being right?" And you fall silent, because she's right. You do care, but now that care is a weakness, your clarity, once sharp and proud, now feels obsessive, controlling, rigid, and she confused, calm, above it all becomes the reasonable one. You feel like a tyrant for holding her accountable. You feel like a fool for needing her to understand. You wonder if you're the one making this harder than it needs to be. You question the tone of your own voice. You start apologizing before she even responds. You edit yourself in real time. And she watches, not with cruelty, but with certainty, because she knows what Machiavelli whispered from the shadows of Florence. The one who appears uncertain always controls the pace. You cannot attack someone who doesn't argue. You cannot punish someone who just needs a little more time. You cannot confront someone who says, "I'm trying to see it your way." But behind her eyes, the game is unfolding. She does not want to win the argument. She wants to reshape the game board. Your need to be right becomes the very proof that you are wrong. Your directness becomes her evidence of your aggression. Your effort becomes her alibi. You've said so much. She'll whisper, "I'm just thinking." But she is not thinking. She is waiting for your voice to empty itself so hers can fill the room. And when it does, it comes dressed in righteousness. Not loud, not dramatic, but devastating. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make it worse. And in one sentence, the reversal is complete. She withheld to protect you. Her silence was mercy. Her confusion was a kindness. She becomes the one who absorbed your certainty and still stayed soft. And you become the man who pressed too hard, spoke too fast, demanded too much. And still, she has not taken a single step forward. She just made you retreat. The velvet reversal does not conquer. It hosts. It opens the door and waits for you to confess your clarity as a crime. And you do. You whisper that maybe you were too intense, too rigid. You ask her if you made her uncomfortable. She says nothing. She just gives that same soft nod, that same gaze of restrained hurt. You are now guilty, and she has not spoken a single judgment. And that is her genius. She does not punish. She observes. She does not challenge. She reflects. But her reflection is distorted. It is the mirror that tilts just enough to make you wonder what's wrong with your shape. You look at yourself through her confusion and see a man too stern, too sharp, too certain. You start to round your edges, you lower your voice, you make your truth more palatable, and every time you do, she gains, because this was never about truth, it was about possession. She does not need to win. She needs you to hand her the sword and beg her not to swing it. And you do. You think it's love, but it's leverage. She smiles and says, "I'm not like other women." And she isn't. Other women say what they want. She waits until you offer everything and then asks why you're always giving so much. This is not a dialogue. It's a slow exchange of power. You become quiet so she feels heard. You become soft so she feels safe. You become unclear so she doesn't feel judged. And when you finally forget your own stance, she steps forward, gently, with the same voice that once said, "I'm confused." Now it says, "Here's what I think." And it sounds so calm, so wise, so evolved, but you don't recognize your own thoughts, now repackaged and reversed. Your lines, your logic, your boundaries all turned inside out, and she speaks them back to you, as if they were hers all along. And you nod, because you're tired, because the battle was never declared, but always fought, because her confusion exhausted your sword before she even raised her hand. You leave the room thinking a resolution was found, that both sides were heard, that she finally understood. But you don't notice the mirror she placed in your hand, the one that only shows your face, your flaws, your voice, and never hers. And as you walk away, feeling peace, she holds your clarity in her palm like a crushed flower, because Machiavelli knew power does not speak loudly. It waits, dressed in doubt. And when the man finishes explaining, she decides what he meant. There is a mirror in the room you just left. It does not show her reflection, only the shape you made trying to be understood. There is a goblet on the floor, unbroken. There is velvet on the chair, still warm. There is a question hanging in the silence. What if she understood you the whole time,